Oh, Amanda, you really think you can protect her from us forever? You have no idea what you're in for. Those were the first words I heard that fateful morning, a venomous whisper slicing through the fragile calm of my thoughts. I was still grappling with disbelief as I sat at the worn kitchen table of our modest Victorian home in Seacliff, a sleepy coastal town where the fog rolls in like a shroud every dawn. I remember my heart pounding, the echo of that deceitful promise lingering as I tried to piece together how everything had unraveled. I am Amanda Carter, a mother whose love for her daughter, Mia, has been both a blessing and a battleground. And this is the story of how I learned that sometimes protecting those you love means facing unspeakable betrayal, enduring gut-wrenching loss, and ultimately rising from the ashes to embrace a new beginning. Every morning in Seacliff began with the sound of seagulls and the soft, salty breeze carrying hints of the vast ocean. On what seemed like an ordinary spring day, the pale sunlight streamed through our lace curtains, casting gentle shadows on the patterned rug in our kitchen. I had prepared breakfast with the care of a mother who knew that even the smallest gesture could comfort a child's tender heart. The aroma of freshly baked sourdough bread mingled with the tang of citrus from a bowl of mixed fruit, a small luxury I afforded us after years of tight budgeting since the passing of my late husband. At 10 years old, Mia was a bright, inquisitive girl whose laughter could dissolve even the darkest of clouds. While I spread a thin layer of homemade strawberry jam on our bread, she sat at the counter diligently scribbling notes for her school project. "Mom, guess what? I got an A on my science quiz," she beamed, eyes sparkling with a confidence that belied the hardships of our life. I smiled, a bittersweet mixture of pride and sorrow swelling in my chest. It had been nearly 4 years since tragedy had struck our family, and every day I fought to shield her from the shadows of our past. Yet, behind our warm kitchen routines and whispered prayers of hope, an undercurrent of tension ran through my extended family, a tension that had long been masked by social niceties and hollow smiles. I had been the pillar of support not only for Mia but also for my aging parents, who clung to our help after their own fortunes crumbled. My father, Martin, once a proud entrepreneur in our hometown, had seen his business falter, leaving him desperate to maintain the crumbling Victorian house he'd called home for decades. My mother, Evelyn, whose gentle eyes belied a steely will, now fought battles against time and financial ruin. As the day unfolded, I managed to send off the necessary funds to keep their home secure and paid for my younger cousin's education at a reputable academy in Seacliff, a sacrifice I willingly made, even though my heart ached at every transaction that widened the rift between my responsibilities and the secret cost of being the glue that held our fractured family together. Not long after Mia left for school, I received an unexpected invitation from my estranged sister, Diana. Diana's life was a stark contrast to mine. Where I had struggled to keep the pieces of our family together, Diana had embraced a life of ostentation and excess. In her eyes, the world was a stage, and she played the role of the glamorous socialite with ruthless precision. The invitation was for a family picnic at Harborview Park, a picturesque green expanse by the water, where we'd once celebrated holidays and milestones together. The message was sweetly worded, promising a reunion filled with laughter and the renewal of familial bonds. I hesitated. My intuition whispered warnings, but the prospect of reuniting with my family, even if only for a few hours, was too hard to refuse. Mia, who had returned home with stories of her day's adventures, bounced on her heels at the idea. "Mom, can we have a picnic? Please? I want to see everyone," she pleaded, her voice hopeful and unburdened by the complexities of our family history. Despite the unease gnawing at my stomach, I consented. I pictured a serene afternoon beneath a sapphire sky, where the park's old oak trees offered shade, and laughter mingled with the chirping of birds. I imagined the picnic basket, a gleaming treasure, handpicked for the occasion, and the soft murmur of relatives sharing fond memories. But fate, as it often does, had a cruel twist in store. The day of the picnic dawned with an almost perfect serenity. The park was alive with the rustle of leaves and the gentle hum of conversations among picnickers. Our family arrived in a convoy of vehicles that betrayed the hidden truths of our relationships. I drove our aging but reliable sedan, its paint chipped from years of faithful service, while Diana and her entourage pulled up in sleek, modern cars that seemed to scream success. My parents, Martin and Evelyn, were there, as was my cousin, Lauren, whose polished manners masked an inner ambition that often bordered on cruelty. Diana greeted me with a dazzling smile, though I could see in her eyes a glimmer of mischief. "Amanda, you look tired. Are you sure you're up for this?" she cooed, her tone laced with a sweetness that made my skin crawl. I nodded politely, suppressing the bitterness that bubbled beneath the surface. As we gathered around a checkered blanket spread under the boughs of a grand oak, I tried to embrace the moment for Mia's sake. Homemade sandwiches, fresh salads, and sparkling lemonade were laid out meticulously. I couldn't help but smile as Mia raced to the picnic basket, her laughter a fragile beacon of innocence amidst the undercurrents of resentment. Yet, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly amiss. Glances were exchanged between Diana and Lauren, furtive, conspiratorial looks that hinted at hidden agendas. I tried to ignore them, to focus on the beauty of the day and the bond I shared with my daughter. As the afternoon sun reached its zenith, I excused myself to visit the restroom, leaving Mia momentarily alone. When I returned, I was met with a scene that shattered the illusion of normalcy. The picnic blanket, the basket, and every trace of our carefully laid feast had vanished. The area where we had gathered was eerily empty, as if a phantom had swept through and erased our presence. Panic gripped me. I called out for Mia, my voice trembling as I searched the expanse of the park. But there was no answer, only an oppressive silence that pressed in from all sides. I found Mia sitting on a weathered park bench, her small form trembling, clutching her favorite pastel scarf, her eyes, wide with terror and confusion, locked onto mine as if begging for answers that I couldn't provide. "Mom," she whispered, her voice cracking with the weight of unspoken pain. "They left me here and took her. They took my friend away." In that moment, every heartbeat felt like a drum of impending doom. I scooped her up, holding her close as my own tears mingled with her quiet sobs. The warmth of her small body was a stark reminder of all I had promised to protect, yet the cruelty of betrayal had stripped us of that guarantee. My mind raced back to Diana's earlier words, a casual invitation that masked a far more sinister intent. I recalled the whispered plans, the covert glances between Diana and Lauren, and now the horrifying realization that they had orchestrated this abandonment with precision. It wasn't a careless mistake. It was a calculated act of cruelty. The betrayal was not merely against me, but against the sacred trust between a mother and her child. Frantically, I searched the park for any sign of the family. A kindly stranger, noticing our distress, offered her phone so I could call for help. With trembling fingers, I dialed my own number, hoping against hope that Mia's voice would answer with the reassurance of our home's familiar embrace. Instead, I was met with silence, and every second stretched into an eternity of agony. In the distance, I saw a group of well-dressed individuals hastily loading their belongings into their vehicles. Their laughter, a sound so discordantly happy, echoed through the park, twisting the knife deeper into my heart. I followed them at a distance, desperate for answers, but they vanished into the throng of departing cars before I could get close enough to confront them. The sheer callousness of it all left me numb, my mind reeling from the realization that those I once called family could be so devoid of compassion. The ride home was a blur of emotions. I cradled Mia in my arms, her silence filled with the unspeakable weight of betrayal. Every mile felt like an eternity as I wrestled with a maelstrom of anger, sorrow, and the overwhelming need to protect my daughter from further harm. That night, as the rain began to patter against our window, I sat at my desk with a heavy heart and drafted a message to my parents. "Where is Mia?" I typed repeatedly, my fingers trembling with fury and despair. The responses were perfunctory, drenched in feigned regret and hollow apologies that did little to soothe the burning ache inside me. The next morning, as the sun timidly broke through the remnants of the storm, I resolved to take action. I gathered every piece of evidence, the security camera footage from Harborview Park that a sympathetic bystander had recorded, the audio captured on Mia's simple voice recorder, and every message and call log that corroborated the events of that fateful afternoon. I knew that confronting my family directly might be futile, Their pride and denial were as impenetrable as the mist that cloaked Seacliff on chilly mornings. Instead, I decided to turn to the only recourse I had left: the law. I contacted a respected attorney in town, one known for his unwavering commitment to justice. Over several tense meetings in his sleek, glass-walled office overlooking the restless ocean, I recounted the events in painstaking detail. My lawyer listened intently, his expression growing sterner with each revelation of calculated deceit. "We have enough here to press charges for child endangerment and neglect," he said, his voice low and resolute. The gravity of his words made my stomach churn, but also ignited a spark of determination that had lain dormant for far too long. I was going to ensure that those who had so callously abandoned Mia would face the consequences of their actions. A week later, I convened a meeting at my modest home, a sanctuary that had become the epicenter of our shattered familial bonds. The air was thick with tension as my parents, Diana, and the rest of our extended family gathered in the living room. The evidence lay spread out on the coffee table: printed transcripts of the recorded audio, stills from the security footage, and the solemn report of our attorney. I took a deep breath, my voice steady but laced with the raw edge of a mother scorned. "I trusted you," I began, my eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Not just as a sister, not just as a cousin, but as family. I trusted you to care for my daughter, to respect the bond between a mother and her child. Yet you have shown me nothing but betrayal and cruelty." My words hung in the air, heavy and accusatory, as the room fell into an almost unbearable silence. Diana's face contorted with a mixture of indignation and shame. "Amanda, it was only a harmless prank," she insisted weakly, her voice betraying a hint of desperation. "We never intended for anything to go so wrong. Mia was safe, we just thought a little scare would be fun." The absurdity of her justification made my blood boil. "Fun?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Abandoning an innocent child, deliberately leaving her alone and terrified in a public park. Is that fun to you? That is not love. That is cruelty." My father, Martin, attempted to interject, his voice trembling as he mumbled, We didn't think it would cause this much harm." But I silenced him with a single, pointed look. There was no excuse, no justification that could mend the broken trust or heal the deep wounds inflicted that day. I continued, "I have already taken the necessary steps to ensure that this never happens again. I have reported this to the authorities, and I intend to pursue every legal avenue to protect my daughter and hold those responsible accountable." The room erupted in a cacophony of murmurs and feeble protests. My mother, Evelyn, tried to intercede with soft words of reconciliation, but her attempts only deepened the chasm between us. I saw the faces of those who had once claimed to be my family twist into masks of regret and fear as I laid bare the evidence of their treachery. And then, in a moment that still haunts me, I saw Diana's eyes fill with tears that were not of sorrow for Mia, but of relief that her part in the plan had finally been exposed. In the months that followed, our once fractured family found itself embroiled in a bitter legal battle that captivated the small community of Seacliff. The courtroom became a battleground where the notions of duty, neglect, and familial loyalty were dissected with clinical precision. My lawyer presented the evidence with a meticulous clarity that left little room for doubt. Every grain of sand in that evidence pile testified to the premeditated cruelty that had been inflicted on Mia, a cruelty that could not be excused by claims of a harmless prank. The trial was as excruciating as it was necessary. I sat in the front row, my hand tightly clutching Mia's, as the prosecution painted a portrait of a family that had sacrificed genuine care for the sake of vanity and superficial power. Each witness was called, each testimony revealing the extent to which Diana, Lauren, and even my own parents had been complicit in an act that defied basic human decency. I felt both anger and sorrow as the truth emerged, my soul aching for the lost innocence of a day that had started with hope and ended in betrayal. In the end, justice was served, not in the way that would erase the scars, but in a measured legal retribution that held each perpetrator accountable. My sister and the others received a verdict that mandated community service, mandated counseling, and a stern probation period during which any contact with Mia was strictly supervised. The legal resolution was bittersweet, It was a victory for the safety and well-being of my daughter, but it came at the cost of severing ties with the people who had once been our family. As the years passed, the legal battle became a distant memory, a painful chapter in the long narrative of our lives that we could never fully erase. But like the tender buds of spring that eventually push through the winter's frost, healing began to take root. Mia, with her resilient spirit and unwavering trust in me, slowly emerged from the shadow of that dark day. With the support of a caring community and a local church that welcomed us with open arms, she found solace in new friendships, academic success, and a renewed sense of self-worth. I dedicated myself to nurturing the bond between us, to creating a home filled with laughter, understanding, and unconditional love. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of lavender and gold, I would hold Mia close and whisper promises of a brighter future. "We are stronger than what they tried to break," I would say, the conviction in my voice a balm for our wounded hearts. "Our love is our fortress, and no one can take that away from us." In time, I learned that true family isn't defined solely by blood or by shared history. It is forged in the crucible of adversity and nurtured by genuine care. I embraced new relationships with friends who became as close as kin, and I found a profound sense of community in the local support groups and church gatherings. The love that had once been weaponized against us was now our guiding light, a beacon that illuminated the path to healing and renewal. I remember one particular evening, a year after the trial had concluded, when Mia and I sat on the weathered steps of our front porch. The sky was awash in the deep purples and oranges of twilight, and the gentle murmur of the ocean provided a soothing backdrop to our quiet conversation. "Mom," Mia said softly, her eyes reflecting the twilight's calm, "do you think we'll ever have a family that truly loves us? One that doesn't use love as a way to hurt and control?" I took a moment to look into her hopeful eyes, remembering all the pain, all the betrayals, and all the victories that had brought us to that moment. "My darling," I replied, my voice tender yet resolute, "our family is not defined by the mistakes of the past or the cruelty of those who failed us. Our family is the one we choose, the people who stand by us in our darkest hours and celebrate with us in our brightest moments. And I promise you, we will always have each other." That evening, as the first stars began to twinkle in the vast, velvety sky, I realized that our journey was not one of endless sorrow, but of profound resilience. The scars would remain as reminders of our struggles, but they would also serve as badges of honor, symbols of the battles we had fought and the strength we had discovered within ourselves. In the aftermath of the legal and emotional tumult, life in Seacliff began to take on a quieter, more introspective tone. I poured my energy into rebuilding not just our home, but the very essence of what family and love meant to me. I began volunteering at the community center, offering support to other parents who had endured similar betrayals and hardships. Through these efforts, I discovered that my pain was not an isolated tragedy, but a shared experience that could bring people together in mutual healing. One crisp autumn day, I organized a small gathering at the community hall, a celebration of resilience and rebirth. The room was adorned with handmade decorations, and the aroma of freshly baked apple pie mingled with the laughter of friends and neighbors who had become our new extended family. Among the attendees was Mr. Caldwell, a kindly older gentleman whose gentle wisdom and empathetic nature reminded me that life's beauty often emerges from its hardships. As we sat in a circle, sharing stories of loss and triumph, I spoke from the heart. There was a time when I believed that love could be manipulated. That family was nothing more than a tool for control. But I have come to understand that true love is about sacrifice, forgiveness, and the strength to choose kindness even in the face of betrayal. Today, we celebrate not just our survival, but our ability to transform pain into purpose. The room filled with soft applause, and I saw in many eyes the spark of hope that I had fought so hard to ignite in my own daughter. Mia, now blossoming into a confident young girl, listened intently, her gaze fixed on me with admiration. I knew that every word I spoke, every lesson we learned together, was a step away from the past and a stride toward a future defined by compassion and authenticity. Looking back on those turbulent days, I often find myself pondering the paradox of love and betrayal. How could those who claimed to be family the ones I had entrusted with my heart and my daughter's well-being, wield love as a weapon. The truth, I eventually discovered, was that sometimes the bonds that appear unbreakable can be twisted by greed, envy, and an insatiable hunger for status. But the most profound lesson of all was that true family is not determined by blood alone. It is built on trust, respect, and the willingness to stand together against the storms of life. In quiet moments, when the world seems to slow down and the only sound is the distant murmur of the ocean, I reflect on that day at Harborview Park. The emptiness of that desolate picnic site still haunts me, a stark reminder of how quickly love can turn to betrayal. Yet, amid that desolation, I found the strength to rebuild, a strength born from the fierce love I have for Mia, and the unyielding belief that our future would be brighter than our past. There were days when anger threatened to consume me, when the memory of those callous voices and cold smiles would ignite a flame of revenge. But I learned that forgiveness, though not an easy path, was the only way to truly liberate myself and my daughter from the chains of resentment. It was in those moments of quiet introspection, as I watched Mia fall asleep in my arms after a long day of healing, that I realized our story was not defined by the cruelty we endured, but by the compassion we cultivated in its aftermath. As I continued to navigate the complex landscape of post-trial life, I began to rediscover parts of myself that had lain dormant for far too long. I enrolled in night classes to study literature, a subject that had always fascinated me but was long neglected amid the chaos of family obligations. Each evening, as I sat in the small, crowded classroom at the local community college, I found solace in the written word. The stories of others who had overcome adversity mirrored my own journey, and I slowly began to piece together a new identity, one that was defined not by the scars of betrayal, but by the courage to love and rebuild. My newfound passion for literature eventually led me to volunteer at a local youth center, where I organized creative writing workshops for children who had experienced trauma. There, I met many who, like Mia, had been touched by the cruelty of an uncaring world. Guiding them through the process of expressing their pain and hope through writing became both a healing exercise and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In sharing my own story carefully, honestly, and without bitterness, I hope to inspire them to find their voices and to believe that even the darkest nights could yield the promise of a new dawn. One particularly crisp winter morning, as I walked Mia to school along the familiar, frost-kissed streets of Seacliff, I paused to reflect on the journey that had brought us here. The world around us was changing, the icy grip of winter slowly giving way to the hopeful stirrings of spring. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. I vowed to never let the past dictate our future, to continue fighting for a life where love was unconditional and true family was chosen, not imposed by cruel expectations. Mia, I said softly as we approached the school gates, always remember that you are not defined by the actions of others. You are defined by the love you give and the strength you carry within your heart. She smiled, a small, determined curve of her lips that spoke of resilience beyond her years. That smile, more than any victory in court or declaration of independence from a toxic past, was my greatest triumph. As the seasons turned, our lives gradually transformed. The bitter chill of betrayal slowly thawed into the warmth of new beginnings. I watched with quiet pride as Mia flourished academically and emotionally, her once fragile spirit now emboldened by the knowledge that she was cherished beyond measure. And in the midst of our healing, I found unexpected joy in the simple moments, a shared laugh over breakfast, a quiet walk along the shoreline, a sunset that painted the sky in brilliant hues. Today, as I write these words with a heart that has both known heartbreak and embraced healing, I stand as a testament to the strength of a mother's love. My journey from betrayal to redemption is not just a personal triumph, but a beacon of hope for anyone who has ever felt abandoned by those they trusted most. The scars remain, etched into the fabric of my soul, but they serve as a reminder that even the deepest wounds can give rise to the most profound healing. I often find myself returning to Harborview Park in my thoughts, not to relive the pain, but to honor the journey that started there. I imagine the empty clearing, once a stage for cruelty, now transformed in my memory into a place of reckoning and renewal. It is there, in the quiet corners of my mind, that I remind myself that I have chosen a different path, a path defined by compassion, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to protecting those I love. And so, as the coastal winds continue to carry the salty scent of the ocean through Seacliff, I walk forward with Mia by my side, confident that our story is not one of endless sorrow but of enduring hope. Our new family is made up not of those who once betrayed us, but of those who have chosen to stand with us in love and solidarity. We have learned that sometimes, to protect the ones you love, you must first break free from the chains of toxic expectations, and in doing so, you forge a bond that is unbreakable. Every night, as I tuck Mia into bed, I recount the lessons of our past in soft whispers, ensuring she grows up understanding that real love is about sacrifice, forgiveness, and the strength to rise above cruelty. And though I know that the wounds of betrayal may never fully fade, I also know that they have given way to a profound wisdom, a wisdom that tells me that true family is not measured by the blood in our veins, but by the love that beats in our hearts. So, as I close this chapter of our story, I leave you with these words. In a world where love can sometimes be twisted into a weapon, let your heart be your guide. Choose the bonds that nurture you, the friendships that uplift you, and the family that stands by you through every storm. For it is in these choices that the true legacy of love is forged, a legacy that, once embraced, will shine brighter than any darkness that ever dared to cross your path. And to anyone who dares to echo those venomous words that once haunted my morning, I say this: your deception may have caused pain, but it has also paved the way for a future defined by resilience, justice, and a love that no one can ever take away. We have reclaimed our story, rewriting it in our own hand, and in doing so, we have discovered that the power to heal lies not in revenge, but in the courage to embrace a new beginning. This is our legacy, a legacy of truth, love, and the unyielding determination to protect what is most precious. And as the sun sets over Seacliff each day, painting the horizon with hues of hope, I am reminded that every ending is merely the start of a new chapter, waiting to be written with the ink of our hearts.